this is Goichi. Welcome to the Doorway to the World. Today's Doorway is a brief history of Christianity, episode 5, the rise of Roman Catholic Church. Well, in episode 4, previously, we talked about the quest of the Roman Catholic Church, that's Western Church, for the benefactor, the new benefactor after Roman Empire has collapsed. And that quest brought division between two churches, the Western Church and the Eastern Church. But this quest was successful. They found a benefactor. And this new support for the Roman Catholic Church came from the Germanic kingdom. And its name is Kingdom of Franks. Well, Kingdom of Franks became a most powerful kingdom among the Germanic kingdoms of that time. You know, its territory actually spanned from the Germany, current Germany, to current France. It's quite a big place. You know, name France actually derived from name Franks. You see, so now Roman Catholic Church found biggest, most powerful benefactor and support on their back. Well, we're going to talk about this. Well, this is what happened. You know, about 5th century, the King Clovis I of the Franks converted to Catholic Christianity. Of course, because he's a king, consequently, the rest of the kingdom became Catholic. Well, after about 250-300 years later, in the 8th century, another king called King Pippin III of the Franks, he devoted the Catholic Church and he actually gave the church some land. This is very significant because in medieval time, land was a very important commodity. You see, land meant the wealth, land meant income, and land meant power. And King Pippin III of the Franks, he gave Catholic Church some land for them to own, to show his region, that the country's region, to the Catholic Church. Well, now Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church, now they have some income coming, which is great for them. And after King Pippin III died, his son became king, and his name is Charlemagne, also known as Charles the Great. Well, the son of Pippin, Charlemagne the Great, actually, he was one of the genius military guy. He conquered and converted Saxons and established the Kingdom of Franks to its highest peak of its power of the time. Well, around that time, in the Roman Catholic Church, the Pope was Pope Leo III. He wanted to strengthen the relationship with Kingdom Franks, so he gave the Charlemagne the title, the Emperor of Rome. Mind you, the Roman Empire has been lost for about 400 years. But anyway, because of the title still carried some kind of importance. So, as a Pope Leo III gave Charlemagne the title, Emperor of Rome, they strengthened their relationship again. Well, now Roman Catholic Church has the support of the most powerful kingdom in Europe, in the Middle Age. Well, this relationship with the Kingdom Franks actually established the foundation of the Christianity to spread throughout the post-Roman Empire Europe. Isn't it interesting? God uses everything to spread His word and His love and His grace. Well, the thing is, nothing lasts long, nothing lasts forever, except God and God's kingdom, but on this earth, nothing lasts forever. We've seen that, we've learned from the Roman Empire. Well, this most powerful kingdom of Franks in Europe, actually they could not carry out their power to much further future. what happened after the death of the Charlemagne's son, Louis I, in 840, the kingdom was divided into three regions, three parts, which was West Franks, Middle Franks, and East Franks. Well, this is what happened. The West Franks actually later became a foundation of current France. And a man called Hugh Capet, and he actually started the dynasty called Capetian dynasty. The funny thing is, this dynasty went on for quite a long time, from about 987 till like 1792, and then disappeared for a little while and came back again in 19th century. But anyway, this Hugh Capet started dynasty that succeeded Charlemagne's dynasty, which is also known as Carolingian dynasty. He had real difficulty ruling the land. At that time, this Western Franks, even though he was a king, there were many principalities and landlords, powerful landlords are there. And they all had their opinions and they liked their rule of their land. So even though Hugh Capet became a king of West Franks, he wasn't powerful enough to control all those territorial landlords. So consequently, this kingdom could not unite themselves together. Even though it went on for a long time, as I said, the Capet dynasty, they weren't as powerful as former Kingdom of Franks. So that's the West Franks. Well, another one is the Middle Franks, or Middle France here. Actually, this became the foundation of current Italy. Actually, they had the territory from the North Sea stretched to the south of Italy. But after the end of Carolingian dynasty, the Middle Franks plunged into instability, caused by conflict with East Franks. Always wanted their territory up in the north and the central Europe. They faced the invasion threat from the south by the newly established Islamic countries. So all those enemies outside actually caused instability of the Middle Franks. And funny thing was, this instability of the country actually led to rise of city-states like Venice, Geneva, and Pisa, and those places. Well, the reason is all those places, Venice and all, they had wealth, they had economy through the trade they had, and they had money, and they needed to protect themselves. So they employed the mercenaries, established the army forces of the cities, and their ruling rulers, they're very wealthy, became powerful, and those cities, not the big country, the cities of those important trade routes became known as city-states. And they're so great and popular and famous, you can read all the stories in some, many literature, such as Shakespeare's plays, Merchant of Venice, the Venice, and Pizza. Where the pizza from? Well, anyway, so Middle Franks, it's always unstable. And now it's East Franks. That became later the root of Germany. After the Carolingian dynasty died out, the king of East Franks were actually elected by the powerful lords of the land. They had gathered together, they elected someone to be the king of the East Franks. Well, in 936, a man called Otto I from a Saxon place. He was a Saxon ruler. The Otto I was elected as the king of Franks. And he was a bit of a guy. He actually defeated invading Hungarian armies and became most successful king in Europe since Charlemagne. Well, when he became the most powerful and successful king of Europe, what happened? Pope approached them. And Pope of the Roman Catholic Church gave Otto I the title, you guessed, Emperor of Rome. Just like previous Pope gave Charlemagne, the most powerful king, the same title. Well, that was two strengths, again, the relationship between church and this kingdom. Well, later on, the East Franks became known as Holy Roman Empire, which actually continued its existence until 806. And most of the time was just by name. They didn't have much of the power because this Holy Roman Empire, again, within inside, became very much unstable. What happened? This Holy Roman Empire, the instability came just like the West Franks. Within the country, within empire, they had many principality and landlords, powerful landlords. Actually, this country was confederation of small and medium-sized political entities. So many rulers are there, wealthy, powerful rulers there, and they were always in conflict. And this conflict and constant power struggle within the empire actually weakened the nations, even though the Holy Roman Empire stayed with its name, but inside it became weaker. Well, this is what happened. Those three, once the most powerful kingdom of the Europe, divided into smaller entities, and each of entities had the struggles and conflict and instability and became weaker. And now Roman Catholic Church looked around and find themselves the most powerful and supreme authority in Europe. You see, the church, they held the authority over people's spiritual lives, you see, because people are always scared and afraid of death and wondering what's happened after their death. So, church gave the spiritual authority over them, said, we are the agent of God of heaven. We guarantee your afterlife. You see, so the church had big power over people. Also, they were acquiring land. Remember that Pippin III, a few centuries ago, gave Roman Catholic Church land. After that, many landlords and kings gave their land, part of the land, to the church. You see, so now the church has big land, one of the biggest land, owning vast amount of wealth. Also, because the church was exempted from the taxing. See, they didn't have to pay tax to the kings and landlords. And plus, church could actually tax the ordinary peasants, the people, the tithes, the 10% of their income. So, they were acquiring vast amount of wealth. It was so wealthy that some of the bishops were much wealthier, richer than some of the kings of the European country of that time. Now, again, Roman Catholic Church was one of the biggest, most powerful, authoritative force in Europe. The thing is, when the power and the wealth gathers, something comes up. It's a corruption. Where great power also brought a corruption to the church. Everybody wanted to become a bishop or priest because that's where the power and wealth is. And secular rulers, the kings and lords, they wanted their choice people to be their priests and bishops for their advantage. You see, so they started appointing bishops and church, regardless of the church authority. It's called lay investiture. And people are also buying positions, paying the church or paying those kings and landlords to become bishops and priests. You see, those corruption grew and grew and became out of hand. And someone stood up trying to change the things. In 1073, Pope called Gregory VII began reforming to tackle this corruption within the church. And what did he do? He stopped buying, selling of church office. He said he stopped people to pay to get a position as a priest and bishops. He also stopped marriage of priests. Why? Because at that time, those priests and bishops handed over their position to their son, their heir. You see, regardless of spiritual greatness or anything like that, but to retain the wealth and power inside the house, their household, they just handed over those power and positions. And Gregory VII stopped that. Now, you cannot do that. And he also stopped lay investiture, the appointment of the priests and bishops by the kings and lords. He said only the church can appoint the bishops and priests. Well, the Reformation went on, but it caused such a conflict between church and secular rulers. You can imagine. This conflict became such a big thing, the church had to do something. And the church had the ultimate weapon to cope with, face this conflict. It's called excommunication. What does it mean? Excommunication means throwing someone out of the kingdom of God, basically, out of the church. And actually, it meant more than being thrown out of the church and made outcast from the Christendom. It meant total isolation from the rest of the world. Remember, the church had such a power, a spiritual authority over people. You see, so if someone is outcast from this kingdom of God, the church, the Christendom, other people will see it. Oh, they don't go to heaven. I don't want to associate with those guys because I don't want to be dragged into hell with them. So those kings and secular rulers who are excommunicated, they first lost the support of the church, support of their own people. They could not get alliance with other countries, and they basically lost everything in the society. Well, this church's supremacy over the secular ruler was illustrated in one of the famous incident called Road to Canossa. It happened in 1077. This is what happened. The Pope Gregory, the Reformation, prohibited that lay investiture. And this really ticked someone. It's a Holy Roman Empire's Emperor, Henry VII, also known as Henry the Fourth. Sorry, Henry the Fourth. Sorry, not Henry the Seventh. Henry the Fourth or Henrik the Fourth. Well, Henry, when I heard this Gregory's facing this Gregory's Reformation and prohibition of the investiture, the Henry renounced Gregory as a pope and called for his resignation. Well, the Pope Gregory said, "No, I'm not going to quit. Well, instead, I'm going to tell you, you're excommunicated. You're fired. You're excommunicated." So, Pope Gregory excommunicated Henry. Well, as I said, after this, Henry lost all those allies, the support from the lords, and then all those people. He realized he made a mistake. And he also realized that he needed the Pope's support to remain as an emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. So, what he did, Henry made a pilgrimage to visit Pope Gregory, who were staying at the castle in a place called Canossa in Italy, and to ask forgiveness to end his excommunication. That unfortunately it was unfortunate for the Henry IV that at that time season was winter. He walked barefoot with just an undergarment to this castle, crying out to Pope to ask for the forgiveness. Well, 3 days he went there in the snow, asking Pope to end the excommunication. Well, eventually Pope granted and accepted Henry's apology and ended his excommunication. Such was the supremacy of Catholic Church. At that time, in the Middle Age Europe, there was nobody could go against Catholic Church. Well, this will change in the future, but that's in another episode. Well, so today it was a story about rise of Roman Catholic Church in the Middle Age. Next time, in episode 6, we're going to talk about Christianity among the ordinary people. We've been talking about Christianity among those nobles, kings and lords, and then wealthy people, landlords. How about ordinary people in Europe? We're going to talk about it in episode 6. So until then, God bless. Goodbye.